Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Paula. Morning, Paula. Morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Hey,
Morning, Rob. Morning, Julie.
Morning, everyone.
Hey, Ewan. You get your lap of the lake in this morning?
I did.
Yeah.
My wife was protesting when I suggested she get out of bed at 6:30.
It was pretty windy, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
Well, 6:30 is a bit early. You didn't see me on your walk this morning, Ewan, for that very reason.
Well, in the end, we didn't get out the door until 10 to 7, so I compromised. And I still didn't see you.
Having said that, I was already on my way to opening the new AA centre in Rototuna at that time. Dressed and out the door.
That was pretty impressive. Well done.
I know. When you have to, eh?
Yeah.
All right. I'm just opening up Diligence, being a bit slow on the other computer, but I'm nearly there. Julie, yours is the first. Is everyone, how are we looking for numbers? Are we expecting anyone? We're on time, aren't we? Yeah. So Julie, we may as well begin because we've got a pretty full day, actually. Yeah.
Thank you, Paula. Good morning, councillors. Narelle, can you share do you want me to share the screen?
Well, if you can, that might be easier for you to run it in time, but I'm happy to if you want.
No, I've all set up. There we go. So good morning. This morning we just wanted to share with you some work we've been doing about being able to tell the story about how we're delivering to Hamilton's wellbeing. So as we have a commitment to, deliver to promote the social, economic, cultural and environmental wellbeing of our community, we thought it's really important we tell that story. And Council adopted the vision and 5 priorities, which gave us a really good basis for setting the story in terms of it tells the focus areas that Council wants to work on to improve wellbeing. So we've been working for quite a while looking at some indicators that we can use to tell how we are delivering on improving wellbeing. And I don't know if you remember, it seems a long time ago, back on the 3rd of March, we brought a set of indicators to our council. I think it was a council workshop, and got some feedback from elected members on those. From that session, one of the things we took away was that just having an indicator or a number or a direction of travel of an indicator doesn't really tell the story. And so we thought it was important that we actually built something around that told the story of what we are doing and how it's having an impact, and more importantly, how others are having an impact as well. So we've created this thing called the Wellbeing Story, and we've called it Building Hamilton's Wellbeing Together. It might be easier if, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
No.
Oh, sorry. I launched straight in and forgot to share it. Let me just go back and do that now. Okay, so I was just talking, can you see that now? Yes. So we're just talking about the Building Hamilton's Wellbeing Together. And so this is a story that we've put together. So if you click on that link, you can go there. I've already clicked on the link, so I'll just bring it up on this screen. Now, the purpose of this story is to tell we have, as an organisation, we have lots and lots of information all over the place about what we're doing. And so we wanted to pull that together under the 5 priority structure so that we actually talk about, what is happening in Hamilton, what Council's doing to improving things for those focus areas, what others are doing, and then talk about, well, how can we actually see this being demonstrated for a set of indicators? And so we've used this tool. It's a interactive tool to tell the story. And it's structured by a bit of an introduction, which is this first one here, and then by the various priorities. So the introduction just talks about wellbeing and our 5 priorities. one of the great things about this is that we can embed documents, or we can embed the videos that we did around wellbeing. And then when we get to the priorities, we have picked up the visuals that we used in our vision document and the wording that we used to describe what that priority is about. And in blue, the focus areas. So these were the things that we said that we wanted to focus on. And we've grouped them up a little bit. So some of them are grouped together, some stand alone. And then for each of these, we've said where Hamilton is now. So trying to describe our current situation of Hamilton. And this is where we've tapped into all the great amount of data that we have across the organisation. So for example, this one, we're talking about looking at focus areas of, connected and safe walkways and cycleways, providing alternative ways to move around the city. And so one of the things we've grabbed is this map that has been done by our GIS team. I'm just going to pop it out into another screen so it's a bit easier to see. It just takes a second to open. And so this is an interactive map that's been created. So you can do things like enlarge it or make it smaller, but you can also click on things and see what these pathways are, which is really useful information for people to see where, and for, especially for elected members, so we can see how our overall network's looking. Now, we've often seen this information presented to council in different reports and stuff, but the idea with this is actually then it becomes something that others can see as well really easily. So we have a bit of a commentary. We have some other really interesting dashboards that have been created that talk about, again, you can pop those out and look at them, look at days, look at where the most cycling is, etc. We've got the Lime Scooter dashboard there that we can look at. So quite a lot of information for people to see. Then we've got a section that talks about what council's doing. So this is about being specific about the programs that we're funding at the moment as part of our 10-year plan to deliver to some of these things. And most importantly, we're talking about what others are doing as well. Katie's worked, so Katie's done a lot of work with us, and she's worked with these various organisations, getting information from them so that we can include it in here. And then we've got a set of indicators. So these were the indicators that we talked to elected members about in March. And you'll see, again, the indicators. So they don't have a target as such because they're an indicator. They're affected by many people, not just us. So it's really hard to set a hard target for something that you can't control. So what we've done instead is set the desired trend of direction, which tells us where it should be going. So that first column is the indicator. Then we've got how we'd like that indicator to move. And the next column is what is actually happening. Now you see for the top 4 indicators there, they're new ones. So we don't actually have an observed trend yet. It'll take us a year to get that data. But if you look at the 5th one down there, which is the number of serious, fatal and serious injury crashes on our road network, you'll see it's actually going the wrong way because this year, or 2021, was 46, and the previous year, and there's a typo there, it should say 2019-20 was 44. And so what we're trying to do is just show, hopefully, the impact of some of the things that we're doing and others are doing on those indicators. It's a long story, so it goes across for each priority, and there's lots of information for each priority. And I'm just going to switch back, stop sharing my screen. So what we wanted to do today was just show that link to you and encourage you to have a look and give us any feedback. The purpose for this is actually so that we can, others in our community, our key stakeholders can look at this and see how they're contributing as well, and we can use it as a story to help get others to contribute. I'll stop talking and take some questions.
Okay, so I think first up I have Mark.
Thank you. Morning all. Thanks, Julie. It's lovely. I just could you please flick to that cycleways page? numbers of or kilometres of cycleways. And can I suggest a possible addition, please? Because it's quite dear to us, a fair few of us in the room, that the connectivity of cycleways, and I'd like to see that as a goal of length of connected cycleways, as well as not just cycleways.
Certainly. Any that sort of feedback, definitely happy to take that and add it in. So if you've,
Great.
yeah, so just we've
So
made a note of that one now.
Yeah, it would be a separate line. So obviously, we want to keep building stuff, but one of the key objectives when they start working is when they start connecting. And
Yes.
so, maybe we could, the Wairere length, for example, is really impressive. And that's a great start. So I know, Sarah, I'd be keen on your feedback on that one.
Yeah.
But it'll be quite a cool little objective to have there.
Yeah. And I should say, some of the information, exactly like that one, we would like it to tell a wider story, but at the moment, in some cases, the data is not there, or the technology is not there. So this is a story that will keep developing, as we keep getting more information that we can pull into things like interactive maps. So really, really interested in that sort of feedback, because that helps us set the direction of what do we need to be focusing on.
Great. Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Paula.
Maxine.
Here we are. I'm muted now. Julia, it looks really great, and it's awesome to be able to have a full story with all of the information on it for those of us who want to be able to dig deep and look at the fullness. There's a lot of people who just want to get a snapshot or just a quickie look. How do you do that, and how do you tell that little quick story on each of those priorities?
That's a really good question. What this will allow us is, now we've got sort of a base of all the information together, that if we want to tell snapshots about particular things, we've got somewhere to start from, and so it'll allow our comms team to help us pull something out of that to tell a quick story. And that's the challenge with this. It's not intended to be the news bite story. It is intended to be the base for that wider conversation, or a starting point to be able to tell those stories, those short stories. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I get that. I get that. But, a lot of the time people don't want to spend, 2 hours looking through things. Are there easy ways for this? I haven't really played with it or looked at it much, but are there some easy ways to be able to navigate for information that you have a particular interest or want to get specific information about, kind of a quick little search or something?
Yeah, I'll check with Katie. So it's structured by the 5 priorities, so that's sort of a good starting point for people. I'll check with Katie if it has a search function. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not going to make a guess, but I'm sure it does. So we can definitely look at that.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Mia Paula.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on this at all? No, thank you, Julie. I think we're living in slightly peculiar times where other priority measurements become the key everyday focus. But I think the work that you've done there is really good to keep us on track about the big picture across wellbeings. And I think as we start to emerge from the COVID situation, we will find that we want to make sure we've been effective across our work programs. So this work will become and I think Mark made some really good feedback there around, just ways that we can tangibly see where we're heading, gives people hope and optimism and that we're on the right track. Plus, it helps us to remember when we make our decisions why we should prioritise one action over another. So thank you very much. Hope you're doing all right in lockdown and it's not too crazy days.
No, it's good. It's good.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that brings us on to the next topic, which
Lance, new job, new background, new man. Look at Lance, new job, new background, new man. Look at that.
It's like a rainbow somewhere over the rainbow. You didn't really want me to sing, did you?
That's
Just
a
trying to
gem.
find the next topic. Sorry, I'm going to go back on my right on Diligent. Now we're into the Dame Hilda Ross Road renaming discussion.
I just like
And
to
I'll
proudly say
shoot that one over to you, Lance.
thanks, Mayor Paula. I just want to proudly say it's actually my own photograph. It's not one of those ones you get off Zoom or Teams or whatever. It's a rainbow fodder, and there's always a pot of gold here at the end of it. Okay, Narelle, can you put up the presentation, please? That'd be really helpful. And then maybe I'll just get you to flick through when I ask you to.
Yes, sorry, 1 second.
Yep, thanks.
So, councillors, just so you know, while Lance is getting that up, a number of us, small number of us, had a meeting eventually with Margaret Evans by Zoom. She didn't really want to do it by Zoom, so it got put off, but we couldn't put off any longer. So we had a conversation with her and made it reasonably clear what was on the what offer was on the table, and how council felt about the current situation, how times have changed. So you might want to pick it up from there, Lance.
Okay, look, I think Narelle's struggling a bit, so maybe I'll just talk our way through it. There was a paper on Diligent with the slides. I think most elected members have probably at least had a chance to look at the slides. I think most people know the background to this. Councillor Mark, being new, there's a bit of history to this. It goes right back to 2017 around a proposal from the Theatre of the Impossible Trust. So Toti with Margaret Evans, who leads that group and do some fantastic work, contributing to our arts landscape around and history around the city. So there was a proposal around having a statue as well as a road name change, and also the corner at Starbucks on Ward Street there called changed to Dame Hilda Ross Plaza as well. So there's sort of a bit of a package to this. And Narelle, can you just go to the next slide? Thanks very much for getting that up. And then part of the package was around changing the part of that road name to Dame Hilda Ross Way in the eastern side of Ward Street. Originally, when the report went to council, after Toti had followed the process working with what is now Grant Kettle's team through the road name changing process, the Community Services Committee declined the road name change, and then there was the recommendation from that committee meeting went to council. Council had obviously had a chance to think about that, and then actually reconsidered that at council, and council voted to approve the name change. Then there was a bit of water went under the bridge just around the where the statue would be, the type of project, and that went on for a wee while, and then finally the decision was made that the statue would be more appropriate and better placed in the front of Garden Place where it is at the moment. And there was a really good unveiling ceremony there, and a great event that was organised by Toti on the day. And there's now some interpretation plaque there as well. So the name change for the road was actually put on hold just through those sort of that whole period when the Toti were working through sort of the morphing of their project. Can we have the next slide? Thanks, Narelle. So the road name change has sort of been sitting there. It hasn't been actioned, and then there was a notice of motion put to council to basically not actually have the road name change happen, and And if we can have the next slide, I just wanted to point out the consultation back in 2017 that was carried out by TOTI. Just to refresh your memories, there was a number of occupiers contacted there, and you can see from the statistics there about the responses received. We actually got staff to just do a little bit of follow-up as well, and there was further follow-up with other occupiers in the street as well, and you can see the results there as well. They sort of speak for themselves. If we can carry on the next slide, thanks, Narelle. So the people who are opposing, they had reasons like cost of rebranding, confusion created by a name change for their business, that sort of thing. And there was some comments from a couple of people that history should be respected, not changed, around the naming of the road. Then there was obviously, there was a number of organisations, not just occupiers, but there was a number of organisations contacted, and various people around the city, and TOTI put all those letters forward, and there was other views on the name change around support from HCBA, from letters from local MPs. Thorke had actually supported it, and Margaret and her team had done a lot of work with Thorke and Mana Whenua, and actually they were supportive, and there was other letters of support too, working through that process. So just moving on, so obviously just looking at the process around the revocation of the resolution. So we got a little bit of legal advice from Tompkins Wake on this. Just make sure that was a process that council could go through if it wished, so that road name change didn't actually happen, because the statue wasn't actually on that corner anymore, and that area the plaza wasn't going to have its the name bestowed on it either. So essentially the legal advice said that council could actually consider the notice of motion without any further consultation, and it wasn't necessary to go through a road renaming process again to keep Ward Street, which would sound a bit odd if that was actually the case. And then just the last, I think it's our last slide, some things to consider. This matter's sort of been sitting there. There was a deferral of the notice of motion. It said it's to come back to council. I think the general consensus was that we'd have this briefing, have some further discussions with TOTI, and see where we could get to. And obviously staff need some direction from elected members today on where we head. So things to consider is the current naming of roads, open spaces and council's facilities policy. Obviously that's going through a review at the moment. TOTI's intent of their road renaming application in the context of recognising Dame Hilda Ross, and Margaret and her team make it very clear that Dame Hilda Ross was her, for want of a better term, her stomping ground was the CBD, and she was quite active in the CBD, so that's why there's a statue in the CBD, and they thought that a road name change in the CBD was quite appropriate because of her history with that area. The other thing to consider, that the location of the statue did change. Since the consultation back in 2017, we have had a couple of the occupiers, if I recall correctly, have come to public forum, and some have spoken to elected members and said they don't favour the road name change, especially now that the statue's not there. To be fair, we haven't recanvassed all of this with all the occupiers through that area, and some of the occupiers have changed as well. Through, you're probably aware that Flight Centre of, with the demise of the tourism industry, that branch is actually closed, and they've regrouped everything to Rapa at the base. And I think other things to consider, the wider views of the relatives of the family, Mana Whenua, and other interested parties too, submitted in when TOTI consulted on this 4 years ago. The other thing is the legal advice, which I just put up before and is in the written notes with this. And I was just going to get James Clark to talk about, he's been in contact with Margaret and her team. Just been having a number of discussions with Toti about where to from here. Obviously, you know, we want to look at something which is reasonably positive going forward. So, James, I might just hand over to you to just outline where those discussions have got to. And as Mayor Paula said, a couple of elected members actually were in on the meeting with Margaret, which had phone call times because of COVID recently, and where we've got to on that.
Thanks, Lance. Morning, everyone. So, given the fact that the statue now isn't, you know, has changed location, and also some of the concerns that have been expressed to us by business owners around the current plan to change part of Ward Street to Dame Hilda Ross Way. But part of the conversation that we've been trying to have with Margaret, which, as Lance say, was COVID has hampered somewhat, is just a slightly wider conversation around, like, is there another suitable way that we can honour Dame Hilda Ross that's not renaming that particular road. And I think it's fair to say that Margaret initially wasn't keen at all on that they're quite set on the current plan. And that they weren't particularly open to any of the suggestions that we came up with, which were just sort of throwing ideas in the air just to test the kind of things that they might be interested in. Eventually, where we got to in the meeting last week, or whenever it was, as Lance said, that they see the central city, the roads that sort of Dame Hilda walked on as being the absolute key here. That for them, for example, a new road in a new suburb that she wouldn't have been to wouldn't be relevant to them. But effectively where we got to, I think, is if we can find some other suitable thing which is of equal sort of standing, equal stature to the current road proposal, from their perspective, that's fine. But they wouldn't want to do anything that was sort of seen by them as a downgrade or a sort of less significant thing than the current proposal. To that end, Councillor Mark did put forward one idea. Mark, do you want to talk about the proposal that you had? And then I guess probably the value in the conversation here will just be testing what sort of appetite there is for different options here, so that staff can then go away and sort of do some proper work looking into whether it's Mark's option or some other one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just pick up where the conversation went. Thanks, James. And that you know, it was pretty head to head, and Margaret and Toti were rightfully feeling a bit downgraded, and pretty slighted by the fact that, you know, there was going to be a street named after Dame Hilda, who they're very, very, you know, protective of. And so we acknowledged that, and then we bounced around the ideas and the intent of what it was about. And we talked about Dame Hilda herself, how she was a pioneer. She herself wouldn't want to be the middle of a big name scrap over a street. And she walked the central city, and she was always on the cutting edge of thinking in those days. She was a revolutionary in her way. And so we came up with this idea, because streets are pretty old hat anyway, and we're moving towards multimodal, and we're trying to redefine the way that we think of transport and walking options, etc. And so we came up with the idea of a way that went from where she is now at the end of Garden Place, and it's a walk cycle way, history walk type thing that goes along the side of Garden Place, significantly in front of the library and Creative Waikato, all the way up to Ryan's mural up there, because obviously her links with Māori was really significant. So the idea being that it comes from, if you like, a European type statue, and it walks its way past various totems, various various storyboards, etc., all the way up to the beautiful mural in Anglesey Street. So it's a straight line up there. And so what you're actually doing is you're putting a small separation up the side of Garden Place, really, for walking and cycling. And it was just an idea that, while I think Jeff was talking at the time, it just sort of sprung into my head, and I thought, well, hang on, doesn't that answer a lot of questions? And there was this almighty silence, one of the longest silences I've ever felt. And you know what it's like when Margaret goes silent, it's quite a scary experience. And then she said, yes, we could work with that. And she was quite taken by the idea, I think. And she could start to visualize something new, something revolutionary, something that honoured both Dame Hilda and her link with Mana Whenua. And so, yeah, that's the origin of the idea that we got to. Now, I haven't talked to them since, but she was going to go away and talk with Toti about it. But I kind of figured no one's going to win out of a scrap over Ward Street, and there would be a scrap over Ward Street. There would be unhappiness, and look, we've had a lot of scraps over Ward Street lately, and I think Margaret got that position as well. She doesn't want to put Dame Hilda's name in the front of a big scrap about Ward Street, and she was quite consumed by this idea, if you like, of a new walkway, cycleway. I don't know what it would look like. I mean, it wouldn't be like an ugly separated cycleway sort of thing. It would be cobbled, it would be coloured, etc. It could be quite cost effective, and it could be a growing thing. And then eventually this trail could actually head down to Sapper Moor as well, if you like, all the way, and tell stories as you go. So that was the idea that Margaret left in a pretty positive frame of mind with, and she was going to go and talk with Toti. So the next step is to talk that through with you guys and see what you think of the idea. Does that about cover it, James?
Yeah, thank you. That was a good description of the conversation. Thanks, Mark.
Yes, so councillors, to be fair, we were trying. That was Mark's idea, and that he thought of was a moment, electricity charge, and it was we were already had moved Margaret's thinking to another space, and that was respectful enough, easy to do without causing harm to any existing business, and took care of the mana of Dame Hilda Ross. So she was open when Mark said, "Oh, hang on, I've got an idea with something like this," and so that's where she's landed, where she thinks that idea or something similar would be the solution. So now we're back in your hands, councillors, as to where we go with this. I will say that I believe it. And in terms of small things like the cost it cost them to put their original application, that can be remitted. That's not a big drama. I think, well, how much was it, Lance? It was a small amount to...
Oh, I'm not sure. I think it's a matter of hundreds of dollars rather than thousands.
So, we've got to be fair in that space. I will say that the businesses down Ward Street are double struggling at the moment. They were struggling last time I was able to walk around amongst them. There was still the majority who weren't really favourable of being disrupted for no really tangible good reason. If the statue had been there, that's fine, but it isn't there. So also now more than ever, when they're trying to settle their business post-COVID, they're just feeling that their feelings against a name change have really cemented, and we don't want to put them under any duress at this time. So we are working in that alternative space, and that's where I really hope we can all contribute some good ideas and get an outcome. Questions?
One other
sorry,
thing,
Mark.
One other thing, if I might add, that down the area we're talking about is technically, Lance, what do you call it, a paper road or something anyway? I think Andrew had designs of making it into a street again at one point, but I figured if we made it into a walkway, it would kind of protect that. Is that what it's called, a paper road or a?
I think it's an unformed. It is legally a road, but it's an unformed road. I don't think we call them paper roads.
Yeah, so it could be the first positive thing we do in Garden Place for years. Who knows? So that's my picture. Sorry.
Thank you. Rob's first.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for that idea, Mark. I think it's very good. When the dust settles, Lance, it will not be, if this idea gathers momentum and support from Toti as well as from council, it won't be a street name, will it? It'll simply be a sign that goes up there, like Garden Place isn't, as I understand it, an official street. It will just be, it will reflect in the way of being, well, the word way is being used as Dame Hilda Ross Way or Walkway or whatever the final name is. Is that where the official sort of road naming, street naming, park naming kind of area ends?
Yeah, look, I don't think we'd be formally changing the name of the road or the Garden Place, because obviously it's got a long history to it, but it might be the Dame Hilda Ross Heritage Walkway or Heritage Walk or whatever. And just thinking a little bit further to the arts and culture strategy that we're going to be working on over the next couple of years, then, you know, this, in my view, this would actually, and what Mark talked about, is intern panels, and to be honest, you can add bits to it as you go, you know, as finances and fundraising allow and that sort of thing. So you can enhance these types of things from something reasonably basic at the start through to something a bit more magical a couple of years down the track. So I think you just be a bit creative around the name, but give it some status though, with that type of name that you were talking about.
Yep, great, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Sorry, Ryan.
Thanks, Paula. Yeah, I like the idea, Mark. I certainly wasn't a fan of renaming Ward Street, so I'd be opposing any move of them to do that. But I think the idea's got merit, and I think the easiest thing is it could be quite cheap if it's just done with paint. And so effectively, you mentioned the mural, you've got a pathway through to Dame Hilda, and then you mentioned Sappermore Jones. So you could actually, I think you touched on it, Lance, have an arts sort of, we've talked about those walking tours, but with arts, you could have overlays. That could be the Dame Hilda way, and then you could have other sections quite cheaply and inexpensively that someone can walk if they're coming to the CBD. And then you could actually overlay it on Google as well, so that people can come to the city and actually follow it on Google Walks and things like that. So I think for quite an effective result, you could actually achieve it pretty inexpensively as well. So keen to explore that one further.
Thank you. Maxine.
Thank you. I think it's quite an elegant solution, really. I really do prefer change by way of agreement and through consultation. And I think that if TOTI are on board with this, then this is a really good way to be able to overcome, a pretty awkward situation for all parties, actually. My only concern is yesterday at the hearings and engagement, a resident of Garden Place talked about access by the bollards through that area by vehicle. So I guess, Lance, the question would be, how do we also allow that and make sure that there's, safety for, the cyclists and walkers, and what might be the priority, and how do we set that up? Cheers.
Yeah, look, I won't give you an answer now, Maxine. It's probably more of an Eva-Lisa type question, but that can be overcome just through design and signage and protocols, a bit like it is now for some of the residents who go in there, and also you probably see contractors going in there with vehicles and things like that. So I think we can overcome that.
Cool. Just it's that care with share with care, but the ultimately somebody gets priority, and if we're calling it a cycleway walkway, then that priority must be the cyclists and the walkers.
Martin, I think you're next.
Is Ewan got his hand up? I thought I was after him, but it's okay.
I thought there was a hand up, but it's gone. So
it's gone, Ewan. Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, look, I had a chat to Margaret. I mean, obviously, this process is starting to get better. This meeting is in public. I understand Margaret was not aware of the meeting this morning, but she's at another meeting. But I discussed with Margaret, and I think the meeting that you, Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Bunty had with her, it sounds constructive and positive. I think there's just two issues around process, Lance, separate to this or related to this. I want us to actually look at a process where if there's a council resolution, and I respect that there's been some complicating factors in terms of location of said statue, that, if a council passes a resolution, if it's not enacted within a certain period of time for whatever reason, then it seems to me that we need to have an automatic trigger where that formally comes back to council. But secondly, if you want feedback, Bunty, I want to compliment you, because this is where sometimes I think you get quite lateral and innovative, and I compliment you on that. And I would hope, picking up from Maxine's point, she uses the keyword elegant agreement, consultation, that any move to not proceed or to rescind the resolution of council vis-a-vis the Ward Street would go hand in hand with the resolution to pursue this. So I'd want them to be absolutely linked. That would be my view. But I think the way you're now starting to do this in terms of process, and this is all an open, and consultation is a lot better than was the case when that previous resolution to rescind came to council.
Thanks, Martin. I don't often get the name or the word elegant associated with me much, so I'll take that one.
No, that could be quite rare, but seize the moment.
Thanks, man.
Did you not like my analogy to electricity?
Yeah.
Elegant and sparky.
Yeah.
Gish.
Thank you. I quite like Mark's idea. And I think it would be a good, I mean, I probably would not support the whole Ward Street name change, but I do like where his idea comes from and what it can provide in terms of a designated walk and cycle way. Something I think would work quite well if Toti or if people were open to it is to incorporate some play elements within this walkway cycleway, because Dame Hilda had a lot to do with children, and I think going past Central Library, and I'm talking about painted hopscotch or things just to make it more fun and interactive maybe. That's just a thought. But yeah, no, I'm comfortable with this. Thank you.
Jeff, sorry.
You're right. Thanks, Paula. Yeah, look, I think everybody at the meeting, because fair to say it was a little bit tense, but felt that, well, I certainly felt it wasn't heading in a good direction. It was kind of one of those situations where, as Mark says, it would have been a heck of a shame for her to be remembered in a stoush over a road name. And Mark's idea, as they often do, and I've known him 20 years, come out from nowhere in the middle of a sentence, and then he just builds on them and they get better and better. So it was a really good moment in that meeting, and Margaret liked it, I think, and I mean, much as I have a deep love for roads and vehicles that travel on them, I think this is actually really quite inspiring. And it fits in with the kind of notion that I don't think we have to do a huge, massive change to Garden Place. We can actually do some pretty cool tweaks, which might make more sense in a way. And so, yeah, I just thought it was a really good solution. Well done, Mark. And well done, Margaret, too, because, it's dear to her heart, and, she was receptive from the start to the idea. So hopefully we can build on it. Yeah, cheers.
Thanks, everyone. So, Lance, you've heard the tenure of feedback. My question, I'm just going to ask a few machinery questions to kind of kick it off. What would it entail? Is it even possible? It was in the idea space, and we've all agreed it's a good idea, and we think it's a elegant and innovative moment to look to idea. So we want to have a think, what's next? Is it possible? We don't want to get all the way down there and saying to Margaret, oh, we're all bought into this, and then find some kind of big hurdle to step over. So how would it become Dame Hilda Ross Way and things? Can you talk? And what cost would they come at? Just so I know what we're dealing with.
So what we'll do is we'll go away. I'll get the appropriate staff to go and work with Toti and to put some flesh on the bones of the concept, and then we can come back to elected members just with that more defined type of project. We will then know a bit more about costs and some of the things that Maxine brought up, and also Kesh, about what we can do. Obviously, we can get our library team involved, and also Creative Waikato, because this heritage walk will go immediately past the front doors of those two institutions, and they've got some pretty creative people in there too. So I think it's about just putting some meat on the bones, costing it up, and then just looking at the process. I think Martin hit on an absolutely crucial thing, is actually come back with a package of the process, the concept, the process, and rather than sort of, coming back with revoking the name change and all that sort of stuff, but do it all in one go, so that it comes back as a package and people can see that we've moved on from Ward Street name change through to this new concept. So look, I don't know the timeframes for that. It'll probably be, probably a few months, so probably be coming back, in the new year rather than before Christmas. But as we know, I know this has been a long project, and it's great that the statue's in. But another 3 to 6 months to actually really refine this will be quite good. Hopefully we have something together so you can consider it in the annual plan if there's cost implications for council as well. I think there could be a real partnership here, and looking at external funding for this too.
Okay, so is everybody clear that Lance's team is going to work through the next steps, put a timeline around it? We'll communicate back with Margaret, and then we'll formalise it through the right council processes. Yeah.
Could I strongly suggest that we keep Margaret in the loop right from the start?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. That was absolutely the next thing. That will be one of the first things, because if she's not bought in, then there's no point going for the rest of the work. So we go back to her, subject to you all approving, and we will then work our way. She'll be pretty tenacious at keeping us on track as well, because she's very good at not losing sight of what's important to her. So yeah, and actually I just add my personal voice. I had mixed views about where Dame Hilda Ross was sited. I would have much preferred her to go in that plaza and be, surrounded by people who were drinking coffee and relaxing and learning, and, students and all those good things. But hey, history's history. She is where she is. And at the moment, she's kind of there on her own in that space. And it's a little underwhelming. The plaque makes it a little bit easier for people to understand why she's standing there. But if we can weave it in, if the design of what we're doing here makes that more clear what it's about and creates a story, we're all for storytelling. I love the idea that Ryan has, and we just talked about this before, about having some way of being able to walk through the historic routes. And I think, see other statues and other art pieces that tell the story of our place and time. And that also fits neatly, I think, Lance, into Hei Poumanua Ora, where we will also be putting new pieces in that start to talk of our place and time and our histories. And we can start to have those conversations about various good parts of history. I have to say, I was standing next to one of the lead staff of MIQ, a woman from the New Zealand Army, who I know, and talking about Dame Hilda Ross, and this woman came up and said, is that the lady who put all our children into care? She was looking at the statue of a European woman there. She was Māori, and I said, no. Contrary, she's a woman who helped Māori from the very get-go, set up health camps, healthcare, and told her a little bit of her history, but we didn't have the plaque then, of course. And I think that was she was like, oh, that is so cool, thank you. Because we walked past it and we thought, So that it is about the ability to weave the actual real history, not just plonk statues there. This isn't an art piece, this is a story piece. So storytelling is important to me. Martin.
Yeah, look, I think Lance and you have summed it up well. It's a journey with our former mayor and Toti, and on the basis of that journey together, I would support, and obviously some of the legalese around how you define a walkway or whatever, but the plaques and the history. And Committee Room 1, we've got our other amazing woman trailblazers in Committee Room 1 in terms of those first councillors. Each individual did fantastic stuff. The other thing which I'm really interested over timelines, as budget allows, is, you know, how we're talking about the plaques on street names, and just people then have context, you know, how many people realise Worley's connection with the city, that kind of thing. Not wanting to divert from this, but Mark, I think you've started a journey for us, which may be even broader than Dame Hilda Ross. I mean, Dame Hilda Ross, right in Garden Place, accentuating her as one of our wonderful daughters of the city and region, and other people, as Paula said, potentially to join. And it just seems to me, as we go on the heritage trail, and part of that heritage trail, I have to say, will be certain plaques on other streets that may share, in the spirit of partnership, some histories that need to be told and people need to understand, which obviously are not very comfortable.
Yeah,
but well done, Mark. Well done.
I totally hear your point, Martin, and it's kind of the vision. It came from that Hill of a Fight play that was on at the Meteor, and you just think if people can hear the stories of why streets are named, suddenly it takes away the fear and people feeling like they're getting something taken away from them. And it's like Linda Towell said from Tainui, it's a matter of adding stuff to people's stories rather than having stuff taken away. So.
And long after I've left this building, it would be delightful if you're still there, that you will be taking that history banner. Thank you, Mark. This is great. This is great.
Cool.
Aye, that's a good day indeed, everyone. Martin, who is the champion of all historic things in our city, as you are, Martin, and heritage, is happy with the progress we make. So I'm happy because I know that you have the historic outcomes at heart, Martin, always. So, thanks, Mark. I mean, you could literally see the ding happen at the moment when it donged in the middle of that meeting. Couldn't you, Jeff? It was a bit like, ba-ding, ooh. And so if you've landed on something that saves the day, that's just going to be phenomenal. So thank you very much for that. Lance, we'll leave it in your capable hands for the next steps then, please.
I'll be delegating to
absolutely.
more capable people than me.
That goes without saying. But you get to be able to wave your magic wand and set it down the chain. Thanks, everyone. I think we were down for a morning tea break. So what time is it now? I can't see the time. It's 10:24. If we come back at 22:11.
I guess we'll just have to check in with staff that they're able to join earlier. I guess they're down for 11:15.
Oh, are they? We've made good time.
We've made really good time, yeah.
Oh, okay. Narelle, if we could, I think we should, because there's quite a lot at the end of the day. There's Access Hamilton as well. And if you could I'll give me a call or a text or something, let me know if that's possible.
Yeah, sure. So
let's aim councillors to come back at 11:15, because it might give staff the chance to get back in and have a decent morning tea. What does MOG mean, Ryan?
Martin Oliver Gallagher. Mog.
Oh.
Martin Owen, or Moggy as he used to be called.
That was an out of context moment. I didn't get it.